Hi, and welcome to the Health Begins with Mom show. I am Dorit Balvanov, your host. On this podcast, I will share insights and interviews on health, parenting, and explore the question of what does it take to thrive as women, wives, and mothers. Now, let's get going with today's episode. What did your transition out? So
I want to work with pregnant people and started on that journey that has carried on for almost 20 years. My oldest son is 19, so I've been in the work of working with people during the pregnancy field, in the pregnancy period and new parenthood period for almost 20 years. I have two boys, 19 and 16, and I'm with my husband. We've been married 20 years and together 25. So relationship, motherhood are a key part of my work and my life. And it's also what I do professionally. I work with couples. I have a PhD in mythology. And for a lot of people, they think, wait, what? You have a PhD in mythology and you work with couples and individuals as they become parents, but these actually work together really beautifully. And I use storytelling and I use rituals and rites of passage, understanding and theory in exploring the process of becoming parents. And so I would say, that's a quick version of a 30-year journey. But all of us have have many year journeys that we try to encapsulate into a short period of time. And so that kind of catches just a little bit. I still do work with parents. I work with them in a preparation course for giving birth. I work with parents after they've given birth. And I work with couples in a personal way in a sort of a coaching department. And then probably the biggest thing in my world right now is that I'm in the process of publishing my first book, which is called Transformed by Birth. And that is very much what I'm focused on, is that transformation that happens in the birth process. And that will be published by Sounds True in January of 2020.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Transformed by birth. Oh my gosh. I think birth is such a unique, transformative event in a woman's life. Like, I don't know, at least in my own experience, I have never had anything as transformative as birth. And this is even something that whether you are aware or not aware, something that you cannot ignore. So oh my gosh.
I agree.
Thank you so much for doing this work, for writing this book. I'm so curious to read it, to get my hands on it when it's ready.
You and me both, by the way.
Yeah. I know, I can't imagine. This is a birth as well, right?
It is, and this has been a long labor. I'm right in the middle of edits with my editor, and it's a big job.
Right. So, I have so many questions for you, Britta, but before we dive deeper into this, I am just curious. I honestly am so ignorant. I don't even know what you mentioned that you have PhD in mythology. Can you just, for me, and also for the listeners who don't know what that is, can you share a little bit more about what that is?
Yes. The easiest way to say it is it's actually a mythology degree with an emphasis in psychology. So really it's about the stories we tell ourselves. So ancient stories in cultures throughout the world, and how we use those stories to better understand ourselves, the world, our lives. We make meaning through stories. And this PhD, this doctoral program, is really about looking at those stories and how they help us understand what it is to be human.
Oh my gosh. So it's something, so what I know to be mythology, it's like Greek mythology and Roman, right? Is
Yes,
that
so a
okay?
lot of people think when they hear that I have a PhD in mythology that I know every Greek god and goddess, you
Right.
know, everything that there is about Greek mythology. And really, I had 2 classes in Greek mythology during my whole doctoral program, because we looked at, we kind of took a broad span across mythology around the whole world, rather than just isolating on Greek mythology or classical mythology, which is what most of us in our Western mind think of when we think of mythology. But we also looked at myth and film, and how film takes story and uses mythology to help enrich our current films. We looked at fairy tales. So we looked at Native American mythology and religion. I looked at Buddhism. We looked at Hinduism. Some African as well, and African diaspora religions. So we looked at a lot of the main religions and mythology making cultures in the world, and explored those as part of the program. Then in the dissertation writing phase, rather than being broad, we went deep. And so in the dissertation writing phase, it's sometimes described as making a hole that is an inch wide and a mile deep. And that's what my dissertation was about: myth and childbirth. So really about the mythology that we wrap ourselves in as Western women, particularly American women, in understanding what it is to give birth in this culture. And so some of those stories are like the myth of control. You know, the idea, the story that we are in control of our lives, that we have control over what happens. This is a cultural understanding that impacts how we give birth. So I looked at that. And so I took the idea of myth and broadened it even further, from not just ancient stories, but to current stories, to current ideals, to ways we hold ourselves. And we think, oh, you know, science and technology, that's not a myth. And yet we use it all the time to explain our lives, the same way that ancient people used their stories and mythology to explain their lives. And so there's similarities in there that I looked at through my dissertation, and that I explore in my book as well.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I could listen to you all day. Like, take me, teach me, mold me. I love that. I love this stuff. Oh, I love this stuff. And I see on your website, on the homepage, is this really what I see? You worked with pink? Oh my gosh. This is so cool. And she's writing, Britta, you are a master at what you do. Really? You worked with pink?
I can share what she has given me permission to share, and that is what is on my website.
Okay, yeah. See, she's saying, Britta, you are a master of what you do. This is so beautiful. Okay, leave it to my imagination. And here on your website, you have this beautiful quote that I wanted to kind of lead with.
Great.
So it goes like this: humans are meaning making, ritual crafting, religion creating beings. So beautiful. We wrap ourselves in stories and mythologies that help us understand who we are and what is important. It is childbirth's fundamental character as a rite of passage, as a moment of great transformation created by our biology that makes it so ripe for mythological exploration. Oh, this is so good, so good, so good. So why don't we jump right into it? Because I have so many of my own, I think, Britta, really, I think I manifested you, because I've been brewing with these questions for such a long time. And I frankly struggled with finding an expert who can answer these questions for me. So why don't we start with the moment of, I think from my personal experience, this journey, and I refer to it as like a cocooning process. And when I work with clients, I refer to it as the transformation from girlhood into womanhood. And I feel like, at least in my experience, pregnancy, conception, pregnancy, birth, mothering, it's basically what started it for me. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, well, I love that you talk about it as cocooning, because I definitely look at the stages as similar to the metamorphic transformation of caterpillar to butterfly. We talk about the caterpillar, and often pregnancy sort of feels like we're becoming the very hungry caterpillar, the very fat, plump, filled up caterpillar. And then we expect on the other side to pop out a butterfly. And we skip that phase in the middle. We skip that place of transformation, that cocooning place that is actually really so important to talk about, and that is not pretty or dressed up. We need to be talking about and exploring and preparing for that part of the transition to parenthood that involves falling apart, dissolving.
Rupture, right?
Rupture, reconfiguration. We like to think that we pop out on the other side of the transform experience of having a baby, and we are still ourselves, but with this really cute bundle of joy and this awesome little accessory that is our baby, when in fact that's rarely what actually happens. Now, does that happen for some people? Sure, but most of us, there's an identity death. A husband and a wife, and even husbands go through transformations to change for, and that's couples who conscious often in that place of regretting parenthood because they are now invisible, alone, and trying to do it all. And that is a recipe for upset, depression, regret. We need more help, not shame, not more shame that we're feeling like we need more help. Right?
Yeah. Oh, this is such a beautiful segue to the most important question that I wanted to ask you. This is why you're here, Britta.
Oh, okay. I'm on alert.
Yes. So this is something I noticed in my own journey. And that's interesting because my entire regret, the reason for it was because I was very deeply conflicted, especially in terms of my work in the world. I remember I shared how becoming a parent, becoming a mom, the rupture that happened for me, like the biggest one, was understanding that I don't want to be in corporate. I don't want to be, shaking hands and wearing suits and leaving the house. Like there was this becoming, this kind of coming to, like this had to happen so that I can grow into it and become more truthful with myself. So for me, it was mostly wrapped around my career, my work, and with the work that I've done with myself, and I've shared this many times here on the podcast, is that I had to go through a life coaching program where I worked with somebody specifically on these ideas, so I did ended up reaching out for help. And what was born out of that was that my motherhood journey was my kind of like dark night of the soul, but also my work. Like my work is all about mothering women and women who are becoming mothers. Yeah. So one of the things that I have noticed is that, and here, this is the sentence that is just coming back to me in my journaling, and that is that how we birth is how we work. So I'm going to explain what I mean by that. I have noticed. So basically, what I've done is I've written out my birth stories, and each one of them, I've had three babies, three births. All of them were born naturally. I mean, vaginally, and each one of them, I had to, like, my water didn't break. And I needed immense amount of help. So with my first one, I had a medicated birth. So I had it with a doctor. I'm from Canada, so it's a little bit different than it is in the States. And then my second, I had at home with the midwife, no doula. And then my third, I've had her at the hospital, but with a midwife and a doula. And my third birth was my longest, but was my best in terms of how I remember it. Mm-hmm. And so through that process of like really diving deep into my births, I have learned that even the evolution of my business and the way, and business is really, it's just another kind of like creative expression, right, of me. So for example, for you, it's the book that you are birthing into the world. For me, it's this business, it's this vision that I have. And I've noticed that there is so much congruency in terms of how I, have given birth, that is kind of expressed in how I give birth to other things, figuratively even speaking. So I really wanted to hear your perspective on that.
Okay. Well, I mean, I haven't put time into exploring that specific question as clearly you have. And for me, I think that each individual person can reflect on their birth personally and explore what the meaning is for them. So this has been your exploration for you. And what it means to you. When I look at my births, I take different meaning and explore what lessons came from that. So what I would say is that I absolutely agree with you that there are lessons to be taken from our birthing experiences, that there are things we needed to know about ourselves that we didn't know prior to having that experience, and that we couldn't have known that we needed to learn. That our births, in whatever form, teach us about ourselves in ways that are profound. I think that there's some research about this, but there's a lot of rites of passage that are given to young men in tribal cultures. There's ways in which those initiations mirror the process of giving birth for a woman, because men don't have that opportunity to go through that birthing experience. But for many women, this is part of the initiation process, is going through this, is facing the dark night of the soul in one way or another, whether it's what happens in birth or what happens after birth. There is something that makes us question, that makes us ask ourselves, who am I now as a result of this experience? And those questions, I find, are incredibly valuable. Even when birth has been traumatic or incredibly difficult, there is something in there that we can explore to know ourselves better, to find meaning. That doesn't mean meaning isn't always flowers and roses. Sometimes meaning is dirt and grime. Like there's meaning can be gritty and hard. It doesn't have to be flowery and fireworky. Meaning has a lot of possibilities. And there's a lot of meaning in birth. We are meaning making. You read that quote from my website. We are meaning making people. We are meaning making animals. And birth is an opportunity for really powerful meaning making.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, this is so powerful. Thank you so much. So at least now I know that I'm onto something. And even if this is my own.
Yeah, especially for yourself. Like, I think that there's something about what we learn through our births that we can take into our lives. I mean, I know that with my first, there were things I needed to know about being his parent that I learned in his birth. And I didn't know I was learning it in the moment. I didn't know in labor and in birth that I needed to know that. And it wasn't until years later that I was able to look at that and go, oh, wow, I needed to know how to love him and be his mom, even when he's struggling. Like, I needed to know how to do that. And my birth with him taught me how to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. So there is a lot of insight in our birth. And it's something definitely to dive deeper into. It's interesting because this, for women especially, because I work with women, intuition, it's such a big component that for me definitely arose, or at least I became aware of after birth, after birthing children.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely sitting with that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we could talk about intuition.
I know.
For another hour.
I know. Oh my gosh, Britta, this has been such a pleasure. Before I let you go, like we chatted about before I hit record, I have a set of questions that I ask all my guests. And this is really to give the listeners and also me, and also maybe you, an opportunity to dive a little deeper into who you are as a woman, as a person, as a human being, as a mother, as a wife. And hopefully we can all collectively learn from that. So are you ready?
I am. Let's do
it. All right. So the first question is, this show is all about inspiring mothers to thrive as women and mothers as well. I like to call it being a goddess, and it's interesting that you have a PhD in mythology. So I'm curious to know, how are you being a goddess in your own life? How do you take care of yourself, your soul, your body? What are some of your non-negotiables?
There's so many, but I would say the things that really support me are my rituals. And there are things that I do that help me. Like, I think about my rituals before I drop into work. There was a period of time when I was frustrated with myself because I'd tinker and I would, clean the sink, and I would run around because I work from home and I'm a writer, and I would do all of these things. And sometimes it would take a couple of hours before I could really drop in to write. And for a while it would bother me. I'd be like, why is this like, what am I doing? And so instead I started taking the mindset of, this is part of my process. So there's some of my non-negotiables are about how I hold myself, how I am with myself. So even when I am upset, I want to be tender with my upset. It's like, when I am struggling, I want to, or irritated. I don't want to be irritated that I'm irritated. Do you know what I mean? I instead want to hold space for my irritation. I want to say, being irritated is okay. I'm still here. I still love you. You're okay. And you're irritated. Okay. You're irritated, Britta. That's fine. But now don't send what in Buddhism is called the second arrow. The second arrow that is like, I'm irritated and I'm irritated that I'm irritated. It's like, that doesn't do us any good. So like with my morning rituals, I started understanding that part of what my process was to get to my desk and work involved what I called putzing, putzing around and tinkering with things. And I began to hold much more space and understanding for that as part of my process. and that my ritual of making a hot beverage mattered. Not that it was getting in the way, but it was part of my ritual that allowed me to drop into the place I needed to be in to do my best work.
Oh, I feel like this is like the next iteration of womanhood, of maybe, because I know your kids are older, and it sounds like you are like the next level of this becoming, of this kind of dropping into who you are as a human being, as a woman, and really being honoring your needs, and honoring what it is that that nourishes you, and then
Yes.
giving that to yourself. So
and
it's
my
beautiful.
kids still bug me from time to time. And I have to be in that place of, okay, they're bugging me, and am I going to be upset that they're bugging me, or can they bug me and I still hold space for myself in the midst of that, and I'm now parenting teenagers. My oldest finished his first year of university this week and is heading home soon. And it's like, that's a whole nother kind of parenting thing. And it's like, how do I hold myself tenderly, even in the parts of parenting a college student that are new to me? It's all developmental stages, back to what we were talking about earlier. It doesn't mean are there ways it's much easier than parenting little children? Yes, I will tell you, yes. And there's still that place of, I don't know if I'm doing it right. And rather than saying, I got to do it right, I want to hold space for the part of me that isn't sure. Like, I want to be tender with the part of me that's like, yeah, I don't know if everything I'm doing as a parent is working out well for them.
It sounds like vulnerability. It's we could talk about this for hours, but vulnerability is it's such a big topic, a recurrent topic in my life. And it feels to me like the older my kids get, the more vulnerability and being able to contain and hold myself is required.
And I think one of the things that I've seen in my years of parenting is that as our children age, there's more opportunity for us to be authentic with our vulnerability with our children. To be able, I don't think we have to hold it privately. Like, I can say to my kids, I'm not sure I'm doing this right, but this is what feels best to me right now.
Yeah.
And it's hard for me to not know how to do this with you. It's hard.
I love that.
It's hard, and I'm still showing up. I'm still here with you. And I think probably one of the most powerful parenting experiences for me was when I learned how to say I'm sorry to my children early in their lives. To be able to say, you know what? I just lost my temper and blew my lid, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You didn't deserve that level of intensity. Your behavior didn't work for me, and here's the things we need to talk about regarding that. And the energy with which I communicated that was mine. And I'm sorry that I gave that to you.
Oh, so beautiful. And I wouldn't be surprised if they do the same.
They do. They're great.
Yeah, because they learn that from you.
I feel so honored to be their mother.
Yeah. All right. Second question. In one sentence, what is your vision for your life? What are you creating? What is your life's purpose? I know, in one sentence.
One sentence. Have you not noticed that I'm a little verbose and I have to cut all these words of my manuscript?
I know, it's the same for me. I have the same problem. Every time I work with my website editor, I'm like, I'm so worldly. Please help me to cut it out.
Yeah. I would say that the purpose of my life is about growth, transformation, and holistically nurturing myself, others, the world.
Oh, yeah, I love that. I love that. All right, third question. What advice does your now mom self would have given to your pre-mom self?
Pre-mom self, so before having kids, I would say to my pre-mom self to go ahead and jump in. I would say I had a lot of, I felt like I became a mom young, even though I was 30 years old. I felt like that was really young. And I didn't have all of my career path completely worked out. And there was a part of me that thought I needed to have my career path completely worked out. And it turned out that motherhood was part of my career path. Yeah, similar to what you talked about. Yeah, that was part of my career path. And I think as women growing up in a highly masculine culture, it can be difficult to be gatherers rather than hunters. You know, there are people who are like, I know my career path. I'm hunting in this direction. I know what I'm going for. And my career path was much more of being a gatherer. I was a yoga teacher, and I put that in my basket. And I learned particular kinds of communication styles, and I put that in my basket. And I was constantly gathering tools and experiences and education that I didn't know what I was going to cook with all of those herbs in my basket. And that was unsettling at times, to not know what I would do with those. Because I wasn't a hunter. I didn't go after that one thing. Instead, I've looked in my basket over the years and been like, wow, look at all of this rich content of my life that infuses my career path. And I'd love to go back and tell my 20-something self that just keep gathering. Just keep gathering what you're hungry for, what smells good, what pulls your senses, because it will come and be valuable at some point, if not in the moment, down the road.
Oh yeah. I can relate to that. All right, my last question to you is, not every woman is a mother, but every woman is a daughter. So I'm curious to know, how do you think that your relationship with your mom helped to shape who you are today?
Well, I have a truly phenomenal relationship with my mom. She is just a remarkable woman and mother, and I think she broke a lot of the negative programming from her parenting and tried really hard to consciously parent me and my sister. And that kind of gave me a leg up in the parenting process, because I didn't have a whole lot of breaking apart of negative parenting to have to get through to then parent my children. And that has been, I mean, truly amazing. She's influenced me hugely. But I also have a stepmom who's been my stepmom for more than, say, over 40 years. And she has influenced my life in really positive ways too. And then I have my mother-in-law. So I feel like I have a lot of mothers in my life, and each of them has influenced my mothering. Those that were my actual, have the term mother, whether it's my mom, my stepmom, or my mother-in-law, or other women in my life who have mothered and nurtured me, I feel like they've all put something into who I am as a mother. And I think each of us gets to look at how we have seen others mother, pick and choose, consciously, unconsciously, and decide how we want to be as a mother. And I feel so grateful and blessed to have had the role models that I have had in my life.
Yeah, I would argue that these people were a part of your basket of this concoction that made you who you are.
Yes.
So it's beautiful.
Yeah, and I have 7 siblings, and so
wow,
all of them, and getting to see how these different, mothers parented, and my husband has a couple of siblings as well, and to just witness and see and explore has been really powerful and influential in my life.
Yeah. Oh, Britta, I could talk to you for hours. This has been such a beautiful conversation that truly I was craving. I craved this kind of conversation for a long time. I'm so grateful for the universe that connected us. It was really, truly remarkably interesting because I didn't know about you, you didn't know about me, and then we were connected through, truly, it was really a beautiful kind of conspiracy of the universe. So I'm really honored. Thank you so much for the work that you do on behalf of myself, on behalf of, collectively, people who are being transformed by birth. Before I let you go, oh my gosh, can you let listeners know how they can connect with you? Maybe you can share your social media handles, your website, your book. Is it available for pre-order, or is it not yet? Not yet. Okay. So the moment it is,
I'm not sure exactly when it will be, but not too far off.
But you will let me know, and I will make sure to attach a link to that in the show notes so that it's available for people. So now it's the time to share all those links, and then we'll say goodbye.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me, first of all. And to connect with me, I have Instagram and Facebook. And for both of those, my handle is Britta Bushnell, PhD. That's BrittaBushnell, PhD. And I'm pretty active on both. And my website is brittabushnell.com. And you can sign up for my newsletter on my website, which has my newsletter goes out. I'm about every other month right now, but that's going to be kicking up to once a month or twice a month in the coming months. And I share things for parents of all ages through my newsletter. So those would be the best ways.
Awesome. Britta, thank you again for your time, for your energy, for your input, for your work, for your wisdom, for the years of, searching and gathering. I really, really honor you, and thank you with all my heart. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Health Begins with Mom show. I love hearing from you, so please post your comments and questions over at healthbeginswithmom.com/podcast. If you love the show, please share it on social media and in your real life with other moms who might enjoy this content. And if you have a burning question or topic you'd like me to hit on the show, just drop me a line at dorit@healthbeginswithmom.com. And if you love this show and really want to support it, please go to iTunes, write a review, and subscribe. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you next time. Much love and many blessings.